So since our motivation is the most important factor of all the actions we do, before sharing the Dharma today, let's cultivate a good motivation and really expand our mind. Because usually our thoughts revolve around me, I, my, and mine. And usually what's most important to us is our own happiness. And after that, the well-being of the people that we care about. And somehow other people and other living beings get lost after that. And we hunker down and have a very limited mind that thinks about me and my group as first and most important. In fact, we live in a very interdependent world, and we really can't afford to isolate ourselves from others because we all depend on each other to stay alive. So it doesn't matter races, religions, politics, ethnicities, none of that really matters. The bottom line is we all need each other just to stay alive. Because none of us can grow our own food, make our own clothes, build our own shelter, make our own medicine, diagnose our illnesses, educate our children, do everything by ourselves. Yeah, we need other people. We depend on them. And we also contribute to the well-being of everybody together. So when we really see that in our hearts, then it becomes clear that our motivation has to be one of considering the well-being of others and of all others. And so one of the reasons why we come to the Dharma is to learn the instructions on how to cultivate love, which is the wish for others to have happiness in its causes, and compassion, the wish for them to be free of suffering and its causes. Because we have to deliberately cultivate these attitudes so that they can go beyond our usual boundaries of me, I, my, and mine. So with that understanding, we really want to expand ourselves, our wisdom, our compassion, our capacity. And we do that by generating the wish to attain full awakening. And what lies behind that aspiration for full awakening is care and concern and love and compassion for all living beings. So let's take a moment and really cultivate that motivation. So our theme this weekend is developing concentration. But as I mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of other factors involved in developing concentration. It's not just sitting down and closing our eyes and concentrating. Yeah. I remember once going to a Montessori school, and the kids wanted to learn to meditate. They were little ones, and this little girl was sitting in the front row. Yeah. So sometimes we have that idea of what concentration is. It's not. We have to have a much more relaxed, open mind. Before we get into that, I wanted to say that you people lucked out, because this book, Following in the Buddha's Footsteps, which is volume 4. Last night I was doing volume 1. This is volume 4 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion, isn't supposed to come out until October 15th. But earlier this week, a few days ago, they happened to mention to me that they got the first copies in and that they looked beautiful. And I thought, oh, well, that's good. Why don't you send some to me? Yeah. But then it was because this volume starts off talking about refuge and then goes into the 3 higher trainings: ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. And there's many chapters here on concentration. And so I wrote them and I said, we're having a retreat this weekend on concentration. Can you send us some books? And so they sent some books, but you know how it is. What is it? Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong, goes wrong. So the people who were supposed to send them didn't, they were supposed to go out like overnight, but they didn't, and I didn't get them. And so 2 days ago, I'm writing to them, hey, we need some books. So anyway, yesterday, finally, the books arrived. So this is volume 4. So the picture on the front is one that you often see in the Tibetan tradition. It's describing how we actualize serenity. Okay, so serenity is a single-pointed mind that can focus on an object without distraction and without falling asleep. And it's kind of, in one way, it's what we're all aiming for, but in another way, there's deeper states of concentration and other ways to use serenity that come after generating it. So gaining serenity, the Sanskrit and Pali word is shamatha, isn't an end to itself. It's to learn to concentrate the mind and then use that state of deep concentration to, as we were talking yesterday, to integrate the other Dharma teachings in our mind. So the diagram starts off with a monk at the bottom and a wild elephant who's painted completely black. The wild elephant is our mind, if you didn't guess. And escorted by a monkey, which is our distracted mind, our distraction. And so they're running ahead on the path, and the monk is running behind, trying to catch up. So that's kind of like when we sit down to meditate, isn't it? Our mind is like all over the place, and we're going, kind of slow down. I want to try and focus. And so it shows the steps that the monk goes through. It's a very gradual process in taming this wild elephant of the mind. And in the process, the elephant, which was painted dark, our very dull mind that's falling asleep, gradually, begins to get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And eventually the monkey, the monkey also starts to change color. And then the monkey disappears. And finally, at the end, the monk is riding on top of the elephant. He has full control over his mind and can guide it wherever he wants. And that's where you see the rainbows and Manjushri and Amitabha. And who is this? Where are my glasses? I'm not sure who this one is. Probably one of the Maha Siddhis. Okay, and so there's a whole explanation inside the book of because there's numbers along the path, and so a whole explanation of what the meditator has accomplished at each stage as they're going towards shamatha. Okay, so it turned out to be quite a thick book. Yeah. So maybe you're not going to travel with it, although I'm sure you can get it on Kindle. But we do have copies downstairs, I hope. Did somebody put copies in the Dharma book room?
Just in the storage room.
Oh, they need to go in the Dharma book room. Okay, and nobody can read them in the storage room. Unless, you really want to go in the storage room and read them. Okay, so I'll be using this book a lot, this weekend, because it's quite complete. One of the things that His Holiness was very strong on in developing this series is that he wanted the perspective of also the Pali Buddhist tradition, not just the Sanskrit tradition that the Tibetans follow, and also more from the Chinese tradition. They follow also the Sanskrit tradition, but they have a different perspective. And so there's chapters in the book not only on the way the Tibetans approach gaining serenity, but also how the Pali tradition does, how the Chinese tradition does. And you see so many remarkable similarities. And on the points where they're not exactly the same, you can enrich your own practice by learning from the other traditions, because all of these teachings originate with the same Buddha. Okay, so I'm not going to read like I did last night. I'm going to try and talk more. First, just to talk about the different kinds of meditation that we have, because there's different ways to classify meditation. So one way is in terms of stabilizing meditation and analytical meditation. Okay, so stabilizing meditation is the purpose there is to stabilize the mind, to learn how to keep the mind on one object without falling asleep, without running off in distractions and stuff like that. Okay, so to stabilize it on one object. The analytic meditation is more on the side of insight or vipassana, and that is to learn how to deeply analyze and examine the object. Okay, because if we're going to realize the nature of reality, we need to develop many different facets of our mind. So we need the analysis so we can investigate what exists and what doesn't exist, and how do things exist, and do they exist in the way they appear to us, or is what appears to us false? And if it's false, how do things exist? So we need to analyze. And then we need, when we reach a conclusion for the analysis, we need to be able to focus the mind on that conclusion and keep the mind there. Okay? So I realize that, the word meditate now is very popular. And, as soon as something goes in Newsweek and Time, then magazines, then then you wonder how much people really are getting the actual thing. Okay? Because now many people think, and also years ago, that meditation was simply a thing of getting rid of all thoughts in your mind. Yeah. And just having a peaceful mind, watching your breath, not thinking about anything. Okay. That's a very common idea that people have about what meditation is. It's not correct. Okay. At least if you want to develop the kind of meditation in a spiritual tradition. If you want to just have a calm mind, then that'll work. Watch your breath, get rid of thoughts. Yeah. And that's good. And then, you go about living your life and it helps you be calmer. That's fantastic. Okay. But that kind of meditation, or that idea about what a meditation is not going to work if you're interested in gaining spiritual insights. Okay. And so that's why you need what I was saying, the two kinds of meditation. You need to do the analysis so that you can really investigate how things exist. And then we need to be able to focus on that single-pointedly. So the stabilizing meditation is helping us focus. The analysis is helping us investigate. And although I gave the example here of the nature of reality, that is probably going to be a lot more advanced for us. And so we will start on topics that are easier to understand and investigate those first. Okay. And at the same time, try and develop our mental stability so that we can focus. Yeah. But the idea isn't just to banish thoughts from your mind. Yeah, it's very important to understand this. Because, for example, cows don't think a lot. Maybe that's why they say, holy cow. If you're going according to that idea of meditation as just getting all the thoughts out of your mind makes you a holy being, then holy cow. But, that's not really our idea of where we want to go. Okay. So, yeah, you can hear the cows. You hear them in the morning? Yeah. So, wow, those poor cows, people stuff them and then they're going to be taken out and slaughtered. And it's very painful to know that. So, with concentration, we want to get all the distracting thoughts out of our mind. Yeah. But we also need to learn how to think correctly. So at the end of the path, of course, we want to go beyond concept and thought. But at the beginning, we need to understand what we're trying to understand. Yeah. We don't just say, oh, the ultimate nature of reality is the emptiness of inherent existence, and close our eyes and think that emptiness is going to appear to our minds. We have no idea what it is, We think emptiness, oh yeah, like emptiness of my refrigerator, emptiness of my bank account. That's not the kind of emptiness that we want to meditate on. Okay. So there was a big, big debate in Tibet in the 8th, 9th century about meditation. Yeah. And is it a process just of getting all the thoughts out of your mind? And the person who proposed that view lost the debate. Yeah. So they left the Samye monastery, and then the other view predominated. But this other one about just, having a blank mind is still very much around. Yeah. Okay, so that's one way to classify meditation: stabilizing and analytic. Another separate way to classify meditation is meditation where we're trying to transform our mind into a particular attitude or feeling, and meditation where we're trying to understand an object. Okay, so this is another way of classifying. So here, if the meditation where we're trying to transform our mind into a certain object or a feeling, that's, for example, when we meditate on love, when we meditate on compassion. Okay, we're not putting love and compassion outside there and trying to understand them as objects. We're trying to generate those feelings inside here. Okay. On the other hand, when we're trying to realize impermanence or emptiness, or we're trying to understand karma or any of the other Buddha's teachings, then we're really trying to understand an object, how to perceive that object correctly. What is that object? When we talk about subtle impermanence, what is subtle impermanence? Okay, and so there we may, really use more investigative processes and analysis and so on. But you see the difference between transforming your mind into love and compassion, which is transforming what's in here, and understanding an object such as impermanence, karma, the disadvantages of samsara, emptiness, where we're trying to understand that. So that's another way to classify meditation. Okay, this weekend we're going to kind of especially concentrate on the serenity or the stabilizing meditation. How to develop some single pointedness. So we'll focus on that, but in doing that, it also involves some of the analysis. It involves developing a good motivation, which means transforming our mind into an attitude of compassion for others, and so on. Okay, so many different kinds of skills. So, okay. So the first thing when they give the teachings on how to develop concentration is the conditions conducive for developing concentration. Okay, so it isn't, like I keep saying, sitting down on our cushion and closing our eyes. There's a whole set of conditions, because things arise dependently, not just on one cause or one condition, but on a whole, what do you call it? Like a whole situation, And so as many of these other conditions as we can create, then the easier it's going to be when we sit down to do stabilizing meditation. Okay? So it doesn't, when we go through these conditions, it doesn't mean that you can't develop your concentration with, if you don't have each and every one of these completely intact perfectly. It just means be realistic in what you can do if you don't have all the conditions. Okay, it's like if you want to make a cake, if you have all the ingredients called for in the recipe, it's going to be easy to make the cake. Yeah, but if you're missing one of the ingredients, or you don't have enough of it. Okay, you don't have it calls for, flour and wheat flour, and you don't have enough wheat flour, then you're going to have to bring something else in to compensate, or you're just going to have, your cake's going to, be a little bit different texture. If you don't have eggs, your cake's not going to rise properly. It's going to be flatter, but you can still kind of get by with a cake, If you don't have the raisins and nuts, some of you will say fantastic. But some of you will feel, oh, well, the cake's missing something. But, well, okay, you have a cake without raisins and nuts and without chocolate chips. Okay, but you can still have something, okay? So even if we don't have all of these conditions, we can still do the meditation, the stabilizing meditation. But to be realistic, that, don't expect yourself to develop serenity in the next few months and then have it perfectly thereafter. Okay, because it really takes a lot of consistent practice. And even after we attain serenity, we have to continue the practice. It isn't like you get there and then, now it's assured. Okay, so it's not like Michael Phelps, he got however many gold medals and then he stopped going in the Olympics. So, so then we have his reputation as, what it is. But actually, he's getting older, and his skill is he couldn't do that again. Okay, so it's the same thing with us. We may get to serenity, but if we don't keep practicing, it's going to go downhill. He was the Olympic swimmer, remember? Yeah. Okay, so the first condition that we should have is a favorable place. So this is one that's calm, quiet, and healthy. Yeah, it's secluded and free from commotion and hubbub. Yeah, it has clean water and air. It's located where we can attain food and clothing and shelter and medicine. Because that really minimizes our distractions. We don't have to go out and get things and so on. So, it's a much more secluded place. So if you live in the city, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, okay? You may live in a place that's relatively quiet, yeah, or you may not. If you have kids, don't set up your meditation room in the kids' playroom, okay, or have the kids' playroom right next to your meditation room, because you're going to get distracted by the noise and so forth. So we want to have a more secluded environment. Yeah. And you definitely don't want to meditate in the room where there's a computer or a TV or your iPhone or your, any other device. Yeah, you want to get those completely out of the way. Now, I know that your phone has become part of your body and that you can't put it down without feeling like your hand is getting cut off. Okay, witness what happens when you come here and we ask you to put your phone in a locked box. Did you give up your phones this week? Was it hard? Some people say no. Some people look at us like, really, you're asking me to cut off my hand. I can't live without my phone. Yeah. So anyway, you don't want that around because it's too easy to get distracted. Okay, then the second condition we want to do is have a very clear and correct understanding of the instructions. Yeah, because it's like if you're going to bake a cake, you need a recipe and you need to understand the recipe. Okay, so the same thing, if we're going to develop concentration, we need all the instructions of how to do it. So we have to study those instructions beforehand. That's the hearing part or the studying part that we talked about last night. Then we have to reflect on them and really think about them and make sure we understand them. Okay, and then we can put them into practice. So to really, understand, well, what kind of object are you going to meditate on? What are the hindrances to developing concentration? How do you overcome those hindrances? Yeah, how can you tell if you're advancing or if you're just spacing out? Okay, because you may get to some kind of state where you feel really kind of, like this. And you think, oh, now I've got serenity, but actually you're totally spaced out. Yeah, and you're very far from having what serenity really is. Okay, so we have to understand the instructions. That's the second point. Okay, and so for that, we need good Dharma teachers. We need to be around Dharma friends who, when we're meditating, if we come up with problems, people we can consult who will help us. Okay, the third quality or the third situation, conducive condition for developing serenity is to be free from coarse desires and having few desires. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next one isn't any better. It's being satisfied and content. Let's go back to number 3, being free from coarse desires and having few desires. We live in a culture. Yeah. Well, first of all, just as human beings, with our afflicted mind, we want a lot of things. We're very geared towards the external world. We desire this, we desire that. Yeah. And our culture reinforces this. Yeah. Look at the advertising industry that we're exposed to all day long, telling us that we need to buy things that we never even knew existed before we read the ad. Okay. It seems like at the beginning when there started to be ads, it was just to inform people where they could get something if they needed it. Now, advertising is to create a need that wasn't really there so that people will get more stuff and it's good for the economy. The fact that it uses up the world resources and we have a limited supply of world resources, people don't care about that. Yeah, we are told to be a good consumer, and that being a good consumer is being patriotic. Yeah, if you remember, after 9/11, the guidance we got from our president. 2 points. 1, be angry. 2, go shopping. Yeah, do you remember? Yeah, because if you went shopping and bought stuff, you were helping the economy, and that was patriotic to keep the country going. Okay? So we have been educated to have a lot of desire. Yeah, so not only our natural innate desire, but what we've been educated to have. Yeah, so we're always looking around, what can I get? Yeah, oh, that's such a beautiful base for your gong. Wow, where did you get that? Yeah. And it's considered polite when you go to somebody's house isn't it, to look at all their stuff and to praise it? It's considered very nice to point out how nice people look, how nice their clothes are. Yeah. I'm still waiting. You know, nobody says that to me. Thank goodness. Yeah. But, you know, we all have to get the latest fashion. Yeah. And the latest fashion used to be, you know, your clothes. Now it's even your glasses. Yeah. They change the fashion of your glass frames every year. And you want to have the right kind of glass frames, you know, that's really with it. Yeah, and the right kind of shoes. You know, do you remember Birkenstocks were in? Birkies are out. Now the kind of shoes where they have a really big rubber rim around it that make your feet look like clodhoppers. You know, that's what's in now. Yeah. And so everybody wants to get those kind of, you know, the ones I'm talking about? Yeah. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. And so everything, you know, we want the latest style. We need this. We need that. We have 2 feet. How many pairs of shoes do you have? Yeah. I look sometimes, you know, when I used to go to visit my parents before they passed away, and my brother's family would be there. And I couldn't believe the number of running shoes, pairs of running shoes they had, you know, just to go running, not just one pair, yeah, but many pairs. And, you know, how we just need so much, I needed so much stuff. We have one body and, you know, closets full of stuff, and we want more. So the thing is, if you're trying to develop concentration, if you have a lot of desire, it's going to be difficult to develop concentration because you're going to sit down, yeah, and the instructions are to visualize the Buddha, but what you come up with is a yacht and a red sports car. That's if you're middle-aged men. Red sports car, you visualize that. You come up with pizza. Yeah. You come up with, you know, I think Apple is producing, you know, some new iPhones or something, or some new products. Yeah. You visualize that. You know, those visualizations, very easy. Visualizing the Buddha, very difficult. Yeah. Why? Yeah. It's familiarity and a customization. Yeah. So we have lots of desires. It's going to be difficult to concentrate. So we have to really work with our mind that wants a lot of things. And that goes into the 4th condition, which is we want to have a mind that is satisfied and content, one that doesn't desire more and better. Okay, so such kind of contentment is very rare in our society. And like I said, to really develop contentment, we have to go against so much of our previous conditioning. Yeah. To just say, what I have is good enough. Okay? The car I have is good enough. Actually, you're so fortunate to have a car. Yeah. If you don't have a car, the bus is good enough. Okay. The phone I have is good enough. No, it's not. My friends just got the new one. It can store more things. I can go on and look up this and that. I've got to get the new phone. I don't want to have the old one. Anyway, it's going to break soon because they make it so that they go out of style and break. Yeah. So developing satisfaction and contentment can be difficult. Yeah. I'm content with my job. I don't have to earn more money. I don't have to climb up the corporate ladder. I don't have to get a promotion. Some of you are looking at me like I'm totally nuts. Yeah? Can you imagine just going to work and enjoying doing what you're doing without the goal being to become somebody more important or to get more money, something like that, to just be content. How I look is good enough. Oh my God, you can't say that. I have wrinkles. Oh my God, what am I got to do something with the wrinkles? I have gray hair. Yeah. What am I going to do with my gray hair? My arms are flabby. Oh, this is terrible. I better go join a gym. And this starts when you're 18. Yeah. 13. Okay. My body just isn't good enough. My body needs to look different. My clothes, I need different kind of clothes. I need to recreate myself. Yeah. My old college roommate, her husband died. And so she wanted to go on one of these dating apps. So she had to, recreate herself to post a photo or something like that. Yeah. So we're perpetually dissatisfied and discontent. Yeah. We want more. We want better. And it's not only for ourselves, if you're in a relationship, you want your partner to look better, to make more money, to be more enchanting. You want your kids to get better grades. You want your kids to be the, chief soccer player of their elementary school. Yeah. Your kids got to excel. Maybe they don't excel in soccer, but then they've got to excel in spelling. They've got to be the best thing. And you pressure your kid. Yeah. So, this kind of mind, it's very difficult to concentrate because the mind always goes to, I want more, I want better, I have to have, what can I get, how can I get it, these people have it, I don't. Yeah. And, and then you're, like I said, you're trying to imagine the Buddha. It's very difficult. Okay. So we need to really practice, one of my teachers had a little mantra he taught us. It was, good enough, dear. You'll see it on some of our bathroom windows. Good enough, dear. He called everybody dear. Good enough, dear. The way you look is good enough. What you have is good enough. What you do is good enough. Who you are is good enough. Yeah? Wow, what a revolutionary idea. But if to develop, concentration, we need to be able to be good enough. Yeah, so we can focus on the object of meditation. Okay, so that was the fourth one. The fifth one is our involvement in worldly activities must be minimal. Okay, so if you have a job, if you're engaged in many projects, they occupy your mind and it makes concentration difficult. Okay. Even you live in a monastery, you have to organize a retreat, and all these people are coming, and you have to put them in this room. And where do you put the people who snore and the people who don't snore? And where do you put the men and where do you put the women? And how do you calculate the number of bathrooms? And then the meditation hall is so small, and so we have to have it here. And now it means we have to keep on reorganizing the room after everything. And how are we going to get all the people to do it? And are they going to complain? And, this one needs a blanket and that one needs something else. And, this one coughs and that one sneezes and oh, thank you. And, and how are we going to make all these people happy? Which is impossible. Okay, so, it happens even in a monastery. You have a lot of things to think about. Yeah. I mean, try writing a book. Oh my goodness. What you have to think. They asked for the proofs. This day I sent the proofs in. It sits on their desk 3 months before they get it back to me. And then they send it back to me and they need it back in 2 weeks. And, and I sent them the pictures, but they didn't like the pictures. And I sent them this file and they didn't, it's all their fault, of course. Actually, the people who are working on this are very good. Except when it came to sending the books out. Anyway, we won't talk about that. So, yeah. So if you want to concentrate, all your worldly busyness, your social life, all that has to be kept at a minimum, because it takes a lot of mental energy, doesn't it? Yeah, especially nowadays where, you have to be extremely busy. Yeah, otherwise you don't have a life. Because you go back to work, on Tuesday morning and your colleagues are going to say, what did you do over Labor Day? And, and then you say, I went to a retreat, and they go, you spent all of Labor Day looking at your belly button? Yeah. I went on a Caribbean cruise. Oh, except there was the hurricane, so I didn't do that. So we have to keep all of our busyness really at a minimum. I know one person who built their own retreat house, in a fairly secluded area in India, really good conditions, and then decided to become the person who, because it was in India, was in charge of everybody renewing their visa. If you have any experience of going to the Indian Foreign Registrations Office and trying to renew your visa, now it's easier. This was some years ago. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, her retreat what could she do? She was every day, going off to, not every day, but a few times a week, going off to the Foreign Registration Office, which was, was way down the hill and like that. Okay, so we need to really keep our worldly activities to a minimum. Otherwise, and worldly activities include entertainment. Yeah, people often ask, well, why you monastics, you have, a precept not to watch entertainment and not to sing and dance and play music. What? How could you not sing and dance and play music? What's wrong with that? Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, it's not unethical. But when you sit down to meditate, yeah, you just watch that movie and you're replaying the movie in your meditation. The song, the melody of the song is in your mind. Yeah, the dance steps are in your mind. The music that you dance to is in your mind. Yeah, you're trying to concentrate on one object, and your mind is, reviewing all the entertainment and so on that you had. Okay, similar to, if you read a lot of novels, when you sit down to meditate, you're going to be thinking about the novels. Okay, so these are conditions to really have the optimum ability to develop concentration. Like I said, that's probably not most of the people's here conditions. Okay, so you do the best you can, but you are practical in what your expectations are. Okay, and you realize that you make choices so that if you choose, to watch a certain film one night, recognize that probably you're going to be too tired after watching the film to do your session. Yeah, or that the next morning you'll probably be thinking about the film. Okay, so just to be practical and have realistic expectations for yourself. Yeah, instead of thinking, I'm going to sit down and like that little girl at the Montessori school, I'm going to concentrate. Okay, then the sixth condition, this is the last one, I bet you're getting happy, is having pure ethical conduct. That's a condition for developing concentration, okay? So what that means is whatever precepts and commitments we've made, we keep those. Now you may say, well, why? What does ethical conduct have to do with concentrating our mind? When we don't have ethical conduct, we have a lot of regret, remorse, even guilt. Yeah, when we sit down to meditate, these emotions come up and they interfere with our concentration. Yeah, similar to if we have a lot of attachment, when, and we're always on the lookout to get more and better because we don't have, we have many desires and little satisfaction, then that's gonna, make it difficult for us to concentrate. Yeah. So ethical conduct is something that's really important, to develop good concentration. So, in the Chinese tradition, one of the meditative instructors, and actually in all of the traditions, they emphasize ethical conduct. Yeah, but really in terms of whatever precepts you've taken, to keep those well, because otherwise, if you've taken one of the 5 precepts, let's say not to lie, and then you have to cover up for something you did at work, so you tell one of those little white lies that aren't so little, but you try and make them little. So you tell one, but then you sit down to meditate and you feel inside kind of something doesn't feel right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah? Or you just trash somebody behind their back. Yeah, somebody was really annoying and you just, criticize them behind their back, and then, one part of you goes, good, I got my revenge. But then you sit down to meditate and it was like, oh, look what I said. Look how I behaved. Yeah, and so there's a lot of regret that comes. So that interferes with our meditation. Yeah. So the idea is not to suppress our regret. Regretting non-virtue is something virtuous, but the way to prevent the regret or the guilt is not to do the non-virtuous action to start with. Okay, so doing our best to keep pure ethical conduct, because then our mind is is light and bright. There isn't a heaviness to it. Okay? So those are the 6 conditions that we're advised to put in place as much as we can in order to develop serenity. Okay. Then the next topic they talk about is your object of meditation. Yeah. And so here, there's many, many, many different objects, okay? But what's important to know is that the object of meditation is a mental object. We're not developing concentration on an object of the senses that we're looking at, let's say with our eyes or hearing with our ears, okay? So it's not having a candle there and staring at the candle. Yeah, that's not what we're trying to do to develop concentration. Because the candle is an external visual object, and staring at the candle, isn't going to do much for you, okay? What we want is for the object to be an internal object. So in our tradition, in the Buddhist tradition in general, okay, like I said, there's many, many different kinds of objects. But the 2 that are most recommended are the breath and the visualized image of the Buddha. Okay, so, and you have to see what fits you the most. Yeah, I remember in the past, I had very bad allergies. They're better now. But in the past, trying to teach breathing meditation, and I couldn't breathe because of my allergies. So for some people, the breath just does not work as an object of meditation. For some people, breathing, maybe because of things that happened in the past, they may feel tight, feel constricted here, or whatever. So for some people, the breath works well. For other people, it doesn't work well. Okay? That's okay. Yeah, there's many different objects to develop serenity on. The other one that is recommended is the image of the Buddha, a visualized image of the Buddha. Okay? So you look at a statue, you look at a picture, and then you close your eyes and you imagine the Buddha sitting in front of you. And for some people, that works really well because their mind very naturally has a lot of visual images. For other people, it doesn't work so well and the breath works better. Okay? So you have to kind of see who you are in that regard. But I should say that some people say, I can't visualize. And I think it's good to question that. If you're somebody who says, I just can't visualize. Yeah, because if I say pizza, do you have an image of your mind of what pizza looks like? Even your eyes are open and you're looking at things in this room. If I say pizza, do you have an image what that pizza looks like in your mind? Okay, that's visualization. If I say, think of what your mother looks like. Even your mother passed away 50 years ago. Do you have an image in your mind of what your mom looks like? If I say, think of your room at home where you sleep. Do you have an image in your mind? Yeah, that's all visualization is. So visualization is not like you're trying to see the object, but with your eyes closed. It isn't, it isn't like that. Yeah, it's a visualized image. When we start, the image may not be perfectly clear, but it's an ability and a talent that we can develop And as we develop it, as we practice it, it improves. Okay, so right now, your image of the pizza, yeah? Okay, what's the topping on your pizza? Mine's mushroom. What? Mushroom and cheese. What's your topping? Topping?
Pepperoni.
Huh?
Pepperoni.
Pepperoni. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, you have even the topping of the pizza. Okay. Can you see every piece of pepperoni? Can you see every piece of mushroom? Can you see every detail about the green peppers? Can you see exactly where the tomato sauce ends? You know, that may not be perfectly clear on your image of the pizza, but you do have tomato sauce and green peppers and, pineapple and whatever else is on it. Okay? If you really focus on your pizza single pointedly, you'll get all those details really good. Yeah. Now, somebody will say, well, you know what? Meditating on pizza, that image comes much easier than the image of the Buddha. Can't I use pizza as my object of serenity? Yeah, why do I have to use the image of the Buddha? Yeah, it's easier to concentrate on pizza because I can visualize it. Thinking about it makes me so happy. I know in the break time I can go make some pizza or go out and buy some pizza. It tastes so good, Yeah. The image of the Buddha is like, it just doesn't get me revved up like pizza does. Okay. Um, or the image of the Buddha. You may say, oh, I can't get the Buddha's face right. I just can't visualize it. If I say Trump, do you have a visualization of what his face looks like? Why does that image come so easily and the Buddha doesn't come so easily?
Because it's not getting as much coverage.
Yeah. That's the sad reality of it, isn't it? The Buddha is not getting as much media coverage. Yeah. If the Buddha were sending out tweets, if all the newspapers put images of the Buddha on the front, it would be so much easier to visualize the Buddha because we would be more familiar with it. Yeah. Okay. But Buddha's looking so peaceful and calm. Yeah. Does Trump look peaceful and calm? Yeah. What's your image when the visual image of him comes? Yeah. Do you see a happy, peaceful person? Well, why are we attracted to the image of somebody who's so unhappy and angry? Yeah. What would happen to our own mind if we became more familiar with the image of somebody who was peaceful and kind? How would that affect our mind? Okay. So this is something to think about because what we contact affects our mind a lot. Yeah. So if we're able to focus on the image of the Buddha, and every image, we have many images of the Buddha around here. In all of them, the Buddha looks totally content with few desires. Okay. Completely peaceful, and yet, compassionate and kind. So the Buddha's peace isn't from withdrawing and, blocking everything out. It's coming from being free of ignorance, anger, and attachment. Okay? So if we accustom ourselves with visualizing that, that's going to really affect our mind in a very different way than visualizing Trump or visualizing Rambo, or who's the latest guy now, Yeah, visualizing the models on the magazines that nobody looks like, but we feel we should look like. Yeah, why put that into our mind, which just breeds discontent and self-criticism? Why not imagine looking at the Buddha? And, that image, it's like art. Art affects us inside, and that image brings out our own peacefulness, our own calmness. Yeah. So this is one of the advantages of using the Buddha as the image, the object of concentration, is that it has this very pacifying, excuse me, a very pacifying effect on our mind. And it then, because of the familiarity, it becomes so much easier when we do our other practices to visualize the Buddha. Yeah. Then when we're sick, when we're dying, it becomes so easy to visualize the Buddha. Then before you go in for a job interview, when you're really nervous, or, something's happening in your life and you're anxious, it becomes very easy to visualize the Buddha and just have that, calm presence in your life. Okay? So, I'll describe how to do these meditations in a minute, but what you're going to do in the 11 o'clock meditation session and in the other sessions where we have, we're going to practice concentration on either the breath or the image of the Buddha. Okay, one or the other, not going back and forth. And we'll do it. They recommend developing concentration in short spurts, so 5 minutes at a time. So, the group will be sitting together. You'll meditate for about 5 minutes, on the breath or on the visualized image of the Buddha. The bell will ring. You just open your eyes and look around for a few seconds, 30 seconds or something. The bell will ring again, and then you again visualize, work on visualizing or observing the breath. Okay, the bell will ring again after 5 minutes. You look around for another 30 seconds, another minute, whatever it is. The bell rings again, then you go back into meditation. Because they say doing these short bits of concentration works much better than trying to sit for a long time when you're not used to doing that. Okay, so you do short bits, but you'll do that over the period of an hour. Okay, and then that has that cumulative effect. As your concentration improves, then instead of your short bits being 5 minutes, they might become 8 minutes or 10 minutes. Yeah. And then with that short break in between of opening and, looking, just kind of expanding, if you need to stretch your legs, you stretch them then, but you don't get up out of your cushion. You don't stand up. Okay. So you can open your eyes, just stretch for a minute, and then you go back in. Okay? So if you're doing the breathing meditation, You can choose 2 points on which to concentrate. One is your abdomen. And here, with both forms of breathing meditation, you just breathe normally. You don't force your breath in any way. Okay, so no deep breathing. We don't want to hear. We had somebody come once for a retreat and he insisted on doing this. It was a little bit too much. He really meant well and he really wanted to, meditate. Okay, so you don't just let your breath be natural, okay? But one point to focus at when you're watching your breath is your belly. And here, when you inhale, you just watch how your belly expands. When you exhale, you watch how it contracts. Okay, so it's just simple like that. Or the other thing is to watch your breath from the viewpoint of the upper lip and the nostrils, in which case when you inhale, what you're really watching is the tactile feeling of the breath as it comes up here and into your nose. Okay? So just the sensation, the physical sensation of the breath passing your upper lip and into your nostrils. Okay? So you choose one of the two. You focus there. Yeah. And I'll talk in future sessions about how to focus and so on. You focus there, and if you get distracted, you notice your distraction, come back to watching the breath. Okay? Don't make a story out of your distraction. Don't, oh, there's a sound. Oh, who was it who coughed? Yeah. Oh, I heard some footsteps. Who came in late? Open your eyes, look around, check out what everybody else is doing. Oh, it's that same guy. We had one guy come for a retreat who had it was in the winter, so he had a nylon jacket. Yeah? So every time, you know how noisy nylon jackets are, synthetic jackets. Yeah? So I don't know if it was nylon or some kind of synthetic something, So every time he just moved just the littlest bit, there was this scraping sound. Yeah? So I think that became the object of meditation for some people. And then it's hard just to leave it alone. It was like, oh, there's that sound again. Why does he get that jacket? He should come here with a different jacket. Actually, I have a jacket like that. I got it on sale. I'm at that store. And yeah, I get all these other things at the store too. I like that store. I should go there more and get more things. Oh, but she said I shouldn't have so much desire. How am I going to change my desire? And then you're off on something else, aren't you? Okay, so don't make a story if you hear a sound or a thought pops into your mind or there's some kind of physical sensation. You just note it, come back to your breath. Okay, if you're using the image of the Buddha as your object of meditation, okay, then you start out with, get the idea of the whole figure of the Buddha. And then go and look at the details a little bit more. Yeah, start with his face. What do his eyes look like? And his nose and his mouth and this facial expression, And then you look at the rest of the Buddha's body. Okay, so his left hand is in his lap with an alms bowl, like the kind the monastics have. And his right hand is on his right knee. It's called the earth-touching position. When he attained awakening, he invoked the earth goddess as a witness to his awakening. So that's by touching the earth. Yeah, that's how as the story goes. So, you you imagine the figure of the Buddha, and he's sitting in the Vajra position, and although his position is very firm, it's also very relaxed. He's not stiff, he's not tight. Okay? And you just go over the details and then focus again on the general image you get. Yeah? Maybe sometimes all you get, because we say his skin is kind of a golden color. Maybe all you get is kind of a golden color, something like that. Okay? That's good enough. That's fine. Yeah, you don't have to get all the details. A basic thing, you want to really feel like you're in the presence of a fully awakened being who's looking at you with acceptance and compassion. Okay? So when you're visualizing the Buddha in the space in front, he's not like, I'm going to deport you. Okay? Yeah. I'm going to revoke your citizenship. Get out of this Pure Land. Yeah. So that's not his expression. It's total acceptance. And so let yourself visualize that. Let yourself experience that of somebody looking at you like that. Yeah. So you go over the details of the image. You focus on the general image. If that starts to fade, then you go back over the details again and refresh them. Okay? But like I said, don't expect everything to appear in Technicolor, all at once. I mean, for example, you've been looking up here for an hour and a half now, okay? If you closed your eyes, could you visualize every patch on my robe? No, okay? You get a general image of a person sitting there, kind of an image, yeah. It's not, it's not the guy in the White House, but it's, you have some image. That's good enough. Yeah, so same with visualizing the Buddha.
This is always a question for me. We say that we're not using a sense object, but the breath is, when we start out, the breath is very much a sense object.
Yes.
And how the mental consciousness connects with that sense object is something that I get a little lost with sometimes.
What the Theravada tradition says is that at a certain point, when you're focusing on the breath, there's an appearance of a little sparkling thing, and that's a mental object, and that becomes your object. No, you keep your mind on the breath. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
When we're visualizing the Buddha, and then we are connecting with the feeling of what it's like to be in the presence of the holy being, somehow my mind gets a block there and goes, no, you're just meant to be focusing on the image. If I go into the feeling aspect, then I'm involving my conceptual mind, and that's straying from what I'm meant to be doing.
No, I mean, it's like when you're talking to somebody, you see the person with your eyes, and you also have a feeling of what it's like to be with them. Yeah, so it's the same way. You're imagining the Buddha there, and you don't make, I'm imagining it. Yes, he's looking at me with perfect acceptance. I really feel being looked at with perfect acceptance. No, your object is the Buddha, but he's looking at you with acceptance, and you just let that be instead of saying, oh, I'm not worthy. How can anybody look at me with acceptance? Okay? You just let it be.
So if someone has been working on one of the objects for a while, can you, like, if I wanted to work on, so I've been doing breath and I wanted to work on visualization, is it okay to sort of switch occasionally?
Okay. If your goal is to develop serenity, they recommend that you don't switch. Okay? Simply because you need to get familiarized with something. Another thing that is possible is some people find it helpful before working on the visualized image of the Buddha to do a little bit of breathing meditation to calm the mind. So you can do a few minutes of breathing to calm the mind and then switch to the image of the Buddha. But if you're developing concentration, you don't want to go back and forth between different things. Okay? But you can also take some time in deciding what your object of concentration is. But the idea is that the whole thing has to do with familiarization. Yeah. So if we're always changing our object, then it's going to be hard to become really familiar with it.
Can you use non-reactive observation of your thoughts as the object of concentration? Not getting involved in, just noticing them coming and going?
Some people talk about that. You're not really staying exactly on one point there. You can develop some concentration doing that. And that's actually another kind of meditation where you're watching your thoughts without judging them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a question about being absorbed in the love.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes quite expansive.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I wonder about the line between that expansive, being absorbed in that expansive love and spacing out.
If you're absorbed in expansive love, there's a feeling of love in you. Spacing out, it's you're just spaced out. You're not feeling love and kindness and goodwill towards others. You're just kind of in your own little bubble.
The reason I'm asking is because it doesn't feel single-pointed in a way. It feels expansive. So there's full absorption, but it's not the same thing for me as being absorbed, the same thing as being single-pointed on an object.
You mean when you're talking about love?
Yeah, or when I'm fully absorbed in that experience of love.
Mm-hmm.
It feels...
Yeah, it is expansive. But you're thinking of all sentient beings. Yeah. So your heart is open. You're thinking of radiating loving kindness to all sentient beings. You're not spaced out just, in some kind of daze where there's, you're not thinking about other sentient beings at all. Okay.
Okay, I'm trying they keep the ethical conduct so I don't have distractions.
Yeah.
But in the past, obviously, I wasn't so ethical. So there appeared things that I was like, oh, how I forgot I did. And so I just get lost in things that I totally forget. And it just keep coming and coming more often.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, it becomes more difficult with things in the past, the things that I do now.
Yeah. Okay. That, is very natural that happens. And it indicates, and what will help with that is to do purification practice. Yeah. So to really do, like this morning, you did the 35 Buddhas. So to do that on a daily basis and really think of the things you want to purify, and doing the prostrations, imagining the light coming in, having a sincere regret, having a determination not to do it again. What the 4 opponent powers, I think have you studied that? Have you remembered it? Okay. We can go over that at some point or in the Q&A session after lunch. you can do that. So that's really helpful. Doing the Vajrasattva practice is very helpful too. So we have the really regretting our negativities, thinking of one of the Buddhas and the light coming and purifying it, and then being able to set these things down and to make a very strong intention of, I've been there and I regret it and I'm not going to do that again. Yeah. And so then you really steer yourself in a better direction. All of us have that happen. When we come to the Dharma and we start looking at our lives, and it's like, I thought I was a really good person. Okay, I better do some purification here. Yeah.
Doing Vajrasattva compared to doing the 35 Buddhas, does that have the same power, or one is more powerful than the other?
I think they both work, quite well.